Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Janna.
And I'm Samiksha Srivastava. On the show today, President Donald Trump has threatened that Venezuela's new leader will pay a big price, and that is if she refuses to cooperate with the US after Maduro's capture. Well, Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez was sworn in by the nation's Supreme Court as the interim president.
We're also going to be tracking the developments coming in from Denmark after the happenings in Venezuela. Denmark's Prime Minister Frederiksen has urged US President Trump to stop the threats, quote-unquote, over the United States taking control of Greenland. Trump has repeatedly raised the idea of Greenland becoming part of the United States, citing its strategic position and mineral resources. We'll be tracking those developments for you as well. Let's start with the headlines. This is World DNA.
President Donald Trump threatens Venezuela's new leader will pay a big price if she does not cooperate with the US, days after American forces seized and jailed Nicolas Maduro.
Trump says Cuba is ready to fall, reasons it would be hard for Havana to hold out without receiving heavily subsidized Venezuelan oil.
Deposed Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro to appear before a federal judge 2 days after his capture. In a US military operation, he is said to face charges of narco-terrorism tied to alleged trafficking of drugs into the US.
Danish Prime Minister urges US to halt the threats towards Greenland after Trump says America absolutely needs the territory.
Swiss police confirm all 40 killed in a New Year's blaze at a bar in Crans, Montana identified. Half of the victims were under the age of 18.
Intelligence report cited by Western media outlines a contingency plan for Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, says he would flee the country if security forces fail to quell protests.
Yemeni government troops backed by Saudi Arabia announces regaining control of Hadramaut and Al-Mahra governance, which is amid ongoing tensions among Gulf regional powers.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi says China and Pakistan have forged an ironclad friendship amid a volatile international environment as he meets his Pakistani counterpart Ishaq Dar for the 7th round of China-Pakistan Foreign Ministers' strategic dialogue.
Armed gangs kill more than 30, kidnap several others, abducted as gunmen attack a market in Nigeria's Niger state.
The message here should be for the world. The President of the United States is not a game player, but don't play games.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition.
adversaries remain on notice.
It involved more than 150 aircraft launching across the Western Hemisphere.
Well, our top focus remains all that's been happening in Venezuela in the last 48 hours. President Donald Trump has threatened that Venezuela's new leader will pay a big price, and that is if she refuses to cooperate with the US.
Now, his statement comes after US forces seized and jailed her former president Nicolas Maduro. Speaking to The Atlantic in a telephone interview, Trump said that if interim president of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, did not comply, she would be paying a very big price, probably bigger than Maduro.
And this as US forces attacked Caracas before dawn on Saturday, bombing military targets and spiriting away Maduro and his wife to face federal narco-trafficking charges in New York. Well, the deposed leader is due to appear in a Manhattan court on Monday.
The Trump administration says that it is willing to work with the remainder of Maduro's government as long as Washington's goals, particularly opening access to US investment in Venezuela's enormous crude oil reserves, are met. In another interview, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that discussions of Venezuela holding elections following Maduro's ouster were premature, with Washington focused on ensuring the remaining leadership in Caracas enacts policy changes.
Elections? Well, look, this is a country that's been governed by this regime now for 14 or 15 years. The elections should have happened a long time ago. The elections did happen. They lost them, and they didn't count the votes, or they refused to count the votes, and everyone knows it. So all of that, I think, is premature at this point. There's a lot of work to be done here. Right now, what we are focused in, let's be realistic here, what we are focused on right now is all of the problems we had with when Maduro was there. We still have those problems in terms of them needing to be addressed. We are going to give people an opportunity to address those challenges and those problems. Until they address it, they will continue to face this oil quarantine.
Well, Marco Rubio also suggested that United States would not take a day-to-day role in governing Venezuela other than enforcing an existing oil quarantine on the country, which is a turnaround after President Donald Trump announced a day earlier that the US would be running Venezuela following its ouster of leader Nicolas Maduro.
Now, in the meantime, European Union has reiterated that respect for the will of the Venezuelan people was the only way to restore democracy. In a statement supported by 26 member states, the EU's Foreign Affairs Chief, Kaja Kallas, called for calm and restraint by all actors to avoid escalation and to ensure a peaceful solution to the crisis.
Well, the Venezuelan opposition figure in exile, Edmundo Gonzalez, has responded to Maduro's ouster in an Instagram post from Spain. He said that while the capture of Maduro is an important step, it is not enough to return normalcy in the crisis-hit nation.
On the other hand, Venezuela continues to grapple with their new reality post-Maduro's ouster. The pre-dawn US bombing at the Fort Tiuna military complex in Caracas left residents of nearby Ciudad Tiuna community shaken. The neighborhood was without electricity while smoke was still rising from the mountain near the fort on Sunday. This was shortly after the assault.
At the moment of the bombing, the first thing that came to my mind was that the Americans had invaded because that's what you think. Then my husband told me, grab the child, grab the child. I even went downstairs in my pajamas because we didn't have time to change or anything. In an emergency, you don't think about anything. You could even run out naked without realizing it.
And to discuss all that's been happening in Venezuela, we are being joined by Professor James A. Russell. He's joining us live from Washington, D.C. He's an associate professor in Department of National Security Affairs at Naval Postgraduate School. Appreciate you joining us on the broadcast, Mr. James. To begin with, the interim leader has taken oath, has sworn in. US has time and again repeated that it's going to be US, the country that will be governing the affairs in Venezuela. We have a U-turn now coming in from Rubio. who says that the US essentially will not be taking care of the day-to-day affairs. What exactly is happening in Venezuela, and what can we expect in terms of the policy when it comes to Venezuela's oil reserves?
I think it's pretty clear that the Trump administration is making this up as it goes along. We see this very confusing, conflicting statements out of the Secretary of State and President over what's going to be happening next. We have on the one hand the president talking about running Venezuela. Now we have Rubio saying, oh no, it's going to remain under quarantine. And all this is a recipe for disaster. Anytime you decide to embark upon the use of military force in which you have no clearly defined objectives, you have no way of achieving those objectives, you've overestimated, of course, as political leaders tend to these days, the impact of the role of force on political circumstance. It's the whole thing is a complete and utter mess. And the last thing I would say about this is that the Trump administration has, of course, gutted any of the expertise that it might have been able to draw on in the State Department, the National Security Council, and elsewhere. They've gotten rid of all these people who might have been able to render some sound advice on how to do this.
Understood.
And I should add, there really isn't a good way to do this. There isn't a good way to, this harkens back to the colonial era. This is an era that your viewers, of course, should be very familiar with in terms of history. And this is a very, it's a disastrous development for the international system.
Professor Russell, when it comes to Venezuela, at this point, they have an interim president. And then earlier we heard from Trump that they're going to be running Venezuela. Who is running Venezuela now?
Well, of course, this is, again, not very surprising. And anyone with expertise could have told Trump this and Rubio, that the country is going to be run by the Maduro administration. And in these authoritarian regimes, and this would be true in Russia, it's true in any of these kinds of places, right, is that the leader has a system of governance in place, and he's got allies in the key ministries. And in the case of Venezuela, again, this is a very common phenomenon in authoritarian regimes. The security services, of course, are closely aligned with the ruling regime. And to expect somehow that you're dealing with a series of different actors who are going to then adopt different policies, I think represents a fundamental sort of misunderstanding of the situation that they're dealing with. But again, this is not surprising in the case of the Trump administration because they don't have any regional expertise to really bear on this complex problem.
There was a government in place in Venezuela, a governance structure in place, and as per that, the vice president now takes over, and that's exactly what we're seeing in Venezuela, and that's what you're pointing out to, Samiksha.
That's right, Mr.
Absolutely.
Russell. Yes, I'd also wanted to bring in the statements coming in from several world leaders in the last 24 hours. This is a statement that's coming in from the European Union that has called for principles of international law and UN charter must be upheld. How do you weigh in as far as the statement is concerned of the European Union?
I think that Donald Trump has driven yet another nail into the coffin of the UN charter-based international order, the so-called rules-based system. This is a lawless president. He's a convicted felon. And he is taking this approach to international relations with the basic idea that the rules don't apply to him and they don't apply to the United States. It's a return of the international system to the law of the jungle. This is what existed, of course, in the early part of the 19th century, and the result were world wars. So the European Union is absolutely correct and is absolutely right, of course, to be calling for a return to the rule-based order. And also, by the way, to remind Trump that he shouldn't think about doing the same thing in Greenland, which is to say parachuting in the 101st Division. But I wouldn't put anything past Trump at this point. Again, if there's a point to make to your viewers from the American foreign policy sort of perspective, Trump is returning the world to this world, again, where the law of the jungle dominates, and the rules-based order, the UN Security Council, the United Nations Charter are being flushed into the dustbin of history, regrettably, I should say.
And his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, giving out statements such as the Western Hemisphere belongs to us, only takes you back to the Monroe Doctrine, where you have Russia on the other hand, where speakers from Russia talking about a Russian empire. We seem to be looking at a time which we thought or imagined and hoped that we were past. There will be more to discuss. Professor Russell, thanks so much for making time for us and joining us here on World DNA.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we'll move further, but this again stems from the US and remarks which have been passed by the US President Donald Trump time and again. Denmark has called on US to stop threatening Greenland.
That's right, Shivan. Washington's military intervention in Venezuela has reignited fears for Greenland as well, with President Trump having repeatedly said that he wants Greenland to become an annexed part of the US.
Now, those fears were underscored by Trump's comments to The Atlantic magazine. This was during a telephonic interview about the implications of Venezuelan military operations for Greenland. Trump said that it was up to others to decide, adding, however, that the US does need Greenland.
Well, President Trump has claimed that making Greenland part of the United States would serve US national security interest, and that is given its strategic location on the Arctic. Moreover, Greenland is rich in key critical minerals used in high-tech sectors.
Now, a Danish Prime Minister Frederiksen has called the idea of US taking control of Greenland absurd. She called on Washington to stop threatening what she called Denmark's historical ally. Earlier on Saturday, Katie Miller, who's the wife of Trump's Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, posted a contentious image. It was the image of a map of the Danish Autonomous Territory in the colors of the US flag on her social media account. Her post came with the caption, and all it said was, soon.
Greenland's Prime Minister Frederik Nielsen called the post disrespectful. He even underlined that relations between nations and people are built on mutual respect and international law, and not on symbolic gestures that disrespect their status as well as rights. But he said that it was neither reason for panic nor for any concern whatsoever. And shifting focus for now then, after a week of protests that shook the Islamic Republic, Iranian authorities have announced that to alleviate the economic pressure, they will give a monthly allowance to every citizen in the country.
Individuals can receive an amount equivalent to 1 million tomans, that is approximately $7 per person per month, which will be credited to their accounts for 4 months. Now, according to the government, amount will be given to every Iranian for 4 months in the form of credit that can be used to purchase certain goods and is intended to reduce the economic pressure on the people. Iran's economy saw a 52% year-on-year inflation rate in December, when it has been grappling with biting US sanctions over its nuclear program. The minimum wage is roughly $100 and average monthly salaries are around $200.
The national currency has lost more than a third of its value against the US dollar over the past year, which has resulted in a sharp decrease in people's purchasing power that culminated into fierce nationwide protests that the Islamic Republic saw in over 3 years.
All right, there are more developments coming in from the US president, who's addressing the media as we speak. We're cutting across to live visuals. Listen in.
That were forced to leave their country. And they're going to be taken very good care of. Yes,
have you spoken with the oil companies about going into Venezuela?
I have.
Which ones? Have you received any commitments?
All of them.
Did you commitments from the oil companies?
They want to go in so bad.
Did you speak with them before the operation took place?
Yes.
Did you maybe tip them off about what was
Before
coming?
and after. And they want to go in, and they're going to do a great job for the people of Venezuela. And they're going to represent us well. But you know, the infrastructure is rusty, rotten, most of it unusable. It's old, it's broken. You see pipes laying all over the ground. Hasn't been, nothing's been invested for years. Chevron's in, as you know, they've done a good job, but even they they haven't been in a position to invest money because they're at a month-to-month basis. They're only there because I wanted them to be there.
Yeah. Are there any contingencies in case the military in Venezuela is unhappy with the U.S. the way it's running Venezuela? Do you guys have plans for anything?
So Venezuela thus far has been very nice, but it helps to have a force like we have. You know, we were ready for a second wave. We were all set to go, but we don't think we're going to need it.
There's about 17 billion worth of reserves in Venezuela. Is that going to be?
You mean trillion?
And is that going to be?
Did you say billion or trillion?
I said billion.
You said 17 billion. It's much more than that.
Okay, so what is going to happen to those reserves?
We're going to run everything. We're going to run it, fix it. We'll have elections at the right time. The main thing you have to face is a broken country. There's no money.
Now, that's the US president addressing the media. We'll continue to bring you the developments. As of now, what he said is that one of the US helicopters got hit very badly during that operation in Venezuela, that overnight operation where they captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. He said, and this is the US president saying this, one of the helicopters got hit very badly, but everybody got back okay, and still reiterates that we are in charge of Venezuela. Trump also mentions that Venezuela is, once again, he says it's a dead country and that they're looking to fix Venezuela before they can think of elections in the country. It is a mess right now. We are going to have big oil companies go in. We will take care of the people.
That's right, Shivan. Just to reiterate that statement coming in from President Trump, who says Venezuela is a dead country. We are in charge of Venezuela, something quite significant because it comes hours after we heard that statement from Marco Rubio, who said that the US is not essentially going to be taking care of the day-to-day affairs. But here we have President Trump once again saying that it's going to be the US in charge of the country until situation is better, something that needs more clarity. He also goes on to say, President Trump, that is, that we are going to have big oil companies go to Venezuela. We will take care of the people. We've spoken to oil companies. So from what it appears, President Trump saying that US companies will be working in Venezuela to get
and Samiksha, for what was majorly dominating the narrative till now was narco-terrorism has gradually shifted to oil. We hear a lot of oil and oil companies and petrodollars coming into the conversation from voices around the world as we see US carrying out these operations. As of now, this is Trump addressing the media on board Air Force One. These are live visuals we have for you on air, and these are the statements coming in. Trump said that if I did not win US elections, US would be Venezuela on steroids. These are all statements coming in as we speak. But, we're still trying to grasp what exactly the US administration attempts to do with Venezuela, with Trump saying that we are in charge and Marco Rubio saying we are not going to be in charge of day-to-day operations in Venezuela. Both statements coming within hours of each other.
He's not going to be doing it very well.
So there will be an operation by the U.S.
It sounds good to me. Yeah. You know why? Because they kill a lot of people. Yeah.
Secretary Rubio mentioned Cuba yesterday in his remarks. Does the U.S. have a plan?
Shifting focus for now, Yemen is facing a civil war as tensions between the Yemeni government and separatists are continuing to grow.
Now, in the latest, at least 80 troops from Yemen's secessionist Southern Transitional Council, that is the STC, have reportedly been killed in fighting with Saudi-backed forces, and this is amid strikes that have carried on since Friday. Now, this is the exact moment. A strike that hits the Southern Transitional Council STC forces in Sayun. That is what has caused the damage. Now you can see those visuals from Yemen. According to preliminary tolls from the fighting, at least 152 members of the UAE-backed STC forces were wounded and 130 were taken captive. The Saudi-backed operations began with a focus to retake swathes of territory seized by the UAE-backed STC as a struggle for dominance between forces backed by Riyadh and Abu Dhabi deepened a rift between the two Gulf allies.
Well, most of the casualties had occurred in strikes by the Saudi-led coalition that targeted military camps that were held by separatists. The official said that including Al-Khasha and Barshid military camps in the province. As of now, Yemen's presidency announced retaking of resource-rich Hadramaut following an apparent retreat of the STC.
Now, residents of Hadramaut say that calm has now returned to the region and added they support the nation's shield forces.
Everything is quite good here. We support the nation's shield forces and Saudi Arabia, which supported us and enabled the forces to enter the city. Hadramaut belongs to the Hadramis. It should not be ruled from Aden or from Sana'a. Hadramaut should be self-governed.
Presently, there are three major factions who have carved up Yemen between themselves. There are the Houthis, who control the capital Sana'a and most of the northwest of the country. Then there's an internationally recognized government of Yemen which controls the north-central regions and some coastal areas in the southwest. And then you have a huge swathe of land controlled by a group called the STC, that is the Southern Transitional Council, which is backed by the UAE.
Well, in recent weeks, separatists backed by United Arab Emirates are seeking to revive the formerly independent state of South Yemen, have made territorial gains. The recent moves in this location are leading to questions surrounding Saudi Arabia, the heavyweight which supports internationally recognized Yemeni government.
All right, we're now going to be cutting across to a short break, but this is World DNA. Don't go anywhere. Lots more coming up on the other side. We bring you a report of what's coming in from South Korea, where President Lee Jae-myung has arrived in China on a 4-day trip to boost economic ties with Beijing. We'll bring you the latest.
Also coming up after this very short break, Chinese Foreign Minister and Pakistani Deputy Prime Minister chaired the 7th round of China-Pakistan Foreign Ministers Strategic Dialogue in Beijing. We'll get you the details after we are back.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS Centenary Year, Kesariya at 100.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA with Samiksha. I'm Shivan. Lots more to discuss on this side of the show as well. Let's start with the headlines.
Venezuela's interim president Delcy Rodriguez calls for balanced and respectful relationship with the US after Trump's heavy price warning.
EU says respect for the will of the Venezuelans only way to restore democracy in the country. Calls for calm and restraint by all actors to avoid escalation and ensure a peaceful solution to the crisis.
Danish Prime Minister urges US to halt threats towards Greenland after Trump says America absolutely needs the territory.
Indian origin woman Nikita, reported missing earlier this month, found dead inside an apartment in Columbia, Maryland. Prime suspect, ex-boyfriend, flees the country.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi says China and Pakistan have forged an ironclad friendship amid a volatile international environment as he meets his Pakistani counterpart Ishaq Dar for the 7th round of China-Pakistan Foreign Ministers' strategic dialogue.
Intelligence report cited by Western media outlines a contingency plan for Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, says he would flee the country if security forces fail to quell the protests.
Yemeni government troops backed by Saudi Arabia announces regaining control of Hadramaut and Al-Mara regions from the UAE-backed STC amid ongoing tensions among Gulf regional powers.
Swiss police confirm all 40 killed in a New Year's blaze at a bar in Crans-Montana identified. Half of the victims were under the age of 18.
Armed gangs kill more than 30, kidnap several others, abducted as gunmen attack a market in Nigeria's Niger state.
Oil prices trade little changed as markets balance political turmoil in Venezuela against ample global supply. Brent holds near $61 a barrel with OPEC output steady and no immediate disruption to Venezuelan production.
Former Australian cricketer Damon Martin wakes up from an induced coma. His family says 54-year-old is making miraculous recovery after being diagnosed with meningitis just a week ago. And for now, let's quickly cut across to President Donald Trump, who's speaking on Venezuela.
but it's got potential. What?
Maybe any rare earth minerals?
They have rare earth, but everybody has rare earth. Rare earth is not rare. What's rare is the processing. We're doing processing plants all over. There's no such thing as rare earth. The rare earth is everywhere. What isn't everywhere is the processing of rare earth, and we have a lot of places going up right now.
One thing we haven't heard you specifically react to is the Minnesota fraud that we've seen play out.
Well, it just doesn't get worse. I've reacted. It's almost not even believable. This very stupid, low IQ governor, he's a very stupid man, because, you know, I had a campaign against him with JD. And he's a stupid man, and he's a corrupt politician. And the Somalians are ripping off our country to the tune of, looks like $19 billion, but that's only what they can find. So usually when you look at it 19, that would mean it could be 50. But the numbers are astronomical. Think of it. They have a dead country. They don't have government. They don't have anything. They don't have a military. All they do is run around shooting people and trying to capture ships. You know, we don't let them take ships anymore. You know why? We use the same exact missile on them that we use on the drug carriers. And it's very effective. So, you notice there's nobody capturing ships anymore? Because as they head out to go capture the ship, and the ship doesn't want to fire back because it's very flammable stuff in many cases. And the insurance companies don't want, because they build $1 billion ship, and they don't want anybody firing rockets into the ship. But we're hitting them so hard, and it's very similar. Same missile system. It's called deadly accurate. And do you notice that ships aren't being taken anymore? The pirates are.
That's right. I hadn't thought about
the pirates aren't. Well,
no Somali pirates.
It's actually very easy. They head out. We say, guess what? There's pirates. Bing. That's the end of the pirates. The shipping business is coming back, because see, these are little things that we're doing, and I'm doing it not just for American ships. I'm doing it worldwide, because we don't want ships taken by Somalia pirates. But what they are doing is they're stealing money from the American taxpayer. And every one of them should be forced to leave this country, including Ilhan Omar, who's a total crook. And she's one of the leaders of it. Not the only, because she's not that smart. But think of it. $19 billion at least.
That's the US president addressing the media aboard Air Force One. A number of statements which have come out. Let me start with the mention of the Monroe Doctrine, once again made by Donald Trump. And Monroe Doctrine, which essentially speaks of the Western Hemisphere being kept away from European influence. That's something that even very recently, Marco Rubio mentioned in one of his interviews to the media, saying the Western Hemisphere belongs to us. And now we hear the US president himself speaking of that same sentiment, which was in the Monroe Doctrine. That's what Trump mentioned. He also mentioned Venezuela is a sick nation. Colombia is sick too. Colombia has cocaine factories. Colombian president won't be able to do it very long. So there is a mention of Colombia that has come in. And then you have Senator Lindsey Graham, who's standing right next to Donald Trump, to his right, that you see on the screens as well. He mentioned that we managed to capture Maduro alive. Wait for Cuba. We will wake up one day and have allies in our backyard working with us, not narco-terrorism. So there's a statement coming in on Cuba and Colombia. And there was also something now that Trump has mentioned regarding Mexico, that we have to do something about Mexico cartels. They are very strong.
We do.
In Los Angeles.
And you know what? You know that Portland, we got it down to almost no crime. Do you know that? But we pulled it out. We had a Supreme Court decision. We can go back. We're allowed to go back in.
All right, we'll move further from here. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has arrived in China on a 4-day trip to boost economic ties with the country.
And this while keeping explosive issues such as Taiwan under the hat. Lee is also the first South Korean leader to visit Beijing in 6 years, and his 4-day trip comes less than a week after China carried out massive military drills around Taiwan.
Now, China's military exercise, featuring missiles, fighter jets, navy ships and Coast Guard vessels, drew a chorus of international condemnation that Seoul has notably declined to join. Lee accompanied by a delegation of business and tech leaders, hopes to expand economic cooperation in meetings with Chinese President Xi Jinping, whose government is a key economic backer of North Korea.
Hours before Lee departed for Beijing, Seoul's military said that North had fired a ballistic missile into the Sea of Japan, which is its first test of the year. The launch has ignited fresh concerns over regional security here.
Japan strongly condemned the reported action by North Korea, saying such ballistic missile launches violate relevant UN Security Council resolutions and constitute a serious issue concerning the safety of its citizens.
Whereas US military has issued a statement saying that they are aware of the missile launch and are consulting closely with its allies as well as partners. For decades, South Korea has trodden a fine line between China, its top trading partner, and the US, its chief defense guarantor. Well, Lee has definitely stayed on the sidelines since a nasty spat that erupted between China and Japan late last year that was triggered by Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's suggestion that Japan could intervene militarily if China attacks Taiwan.
Moreover, Lee Jae-myung has long dodged questions about whether Seoul would intervene in the event of a conflict over Taiwan, which Beijing has not ruled out using force to seize. Which is why the upcoming Xi-Lee meet would be an interesting watch. Now, prior to this, Xi Jinping and Lee Jae-myung last met in November last year on the sidelines of a regional summit in Gyeongju, South Korea, a meeting that Seoul framed at the time as a reset following years of tense relations between China and South Korea.
Well, on to North Korea then. The country has linked its latest missile launch to what it calls a recent geopolitical crisis, signaling heightened regional tensions.
And along with this, a warning to its rivals as well. The state media confirmed the launch and provided further details, saying North Korea's first missile test of 2026 involved a cutting-edge new weapon system incorporating hypersonic missiles that were first tested in the month of October. The report did not specify how many missiles were launched, but clarified that they hit the targets 1,000 kilometers away in the Sea of Japan.
The state media further reported that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un hailed the drill and said that important achievements have been recently made in putting their nuclear forces on a practical basis and preparing them for an actual war, and why it is necessary is exemplified by the recent geopolitical crisis and complicated international events.
The launch came as the US military carried out an operation in Venezuela that led to the capture of President Nicolas Maduro. North Korea condemned Maduro's detention, calling it a grave violation of national sovereignty.
Analysts now say that the US action may have influenced Pyongyang's decision to go ahead with the alleged missile test, while noting that North Korea has long accused Washington of pursuing regime change policies against it.
South Korea convened an emergency meeting in response to the incident, as the move by its arch rival comes while President Lee Jae-myung is in China on a 4-day visit.
Japan also strongly condemned North Korea's missile launch and said that it has been placed on high alert.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and Pakistani Deputy Prime Minister and Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar, they co-chaired the 7th round of the China-Pakistan Foreign Ministers Strategic Dialogue in Beijing on Sunday.
Well, both sides examined the full range of Pakistan-China relations while addressing major regional and global issues, and even exchanged views on China-Pakistan economic corridor, trade, multilateral collaboration, as well as people-to-people ties. Wang Yi, who is also a senior member of China's Communist Party leadership, described the relationship with Pakistan as ironclad amidst volatile international situations. And this, while he noted that the current international landscape is increasingly characterized by changes as well as instability, but emphasized that the sovereignty and security must be protected under international law.
While Ishaq Dar reiterated Pakistan's commitment to the One China principle, pledging firm support for China on all issues tied to its core interests. Both leaders agreed to uphold the UN Charter and oppose actions that undermine the sovereignty of other nations.
The latest round of talks come days after a Pentagon report highlighted the growing cooperation between Pakistan and China in defense and space. The report claimed that Beijing is considering setting up additional military bases across the globe, one of which is in Pakistan.
Ishaq Dar and Wang Yi also unveiled the official logo commemorating 75 years of Pakistan-China diplomatic relations. The launch heralds a year-long series of celebrations to mark the relations and chart new horizons of partnership for the future. Now, during his visit to Beijing, Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister toured a special photo exhibition marking these 75 years of their friendship. The display showcased landmark moments in the development of their all-weather strategic cooperative partnership, from the earliest diplomatic exchanges to the launch of CPEC and beyond.
Well, to other news then, President Donald Trump has said that US oil firms will invest billions to restore Venezuela's oil infrastructure.
And this is following a military operation that captured Nicolas Maduro. Under Trump 2.0, American firms are not only driving record domestic oil and gas output, but they are also asserting their influence globally. This is in keeping with Trump's expansive vision of US energy domination. Remember, drill baby drill, and that includes his plan for Venezuela now.
And preceding US airstrikes and Maduro's capture, successive administrations used oil sanctions in 2019 and a partial blockade of oil vessels to put pressure on Maduro. Crude has played a central role in those moves for many years. Low oil and gasoline prices are important to the president because he wants to control inflation and address the cost of living crisis. Well, this will play a role in the midterm elections in the month of November.
The president has stated this on multiple occasions. Oil prices had their sharpest yearly decline since 2020, with the global benchmark Brent plunging towards $60 per barrel at the end of 2025. The over 20% fall in 2025 is based on expectations of a global supply glut this year. For now, crude markets have taken the latest US move in its stride. However, traders say risks remain.
George Leon, head of geopolitical analysis at Rystad Energy, said, and I quote, "History shows that enforced regime change rarely stabilizes oil supply quickly, with Libya and Iraq offering clear and sobering precedents." Well, this as US oil companies were the main architects of Venezuela's oil industry starting a century ago, building the country into a leading supplier. However, the industry was nationalized in mid-1970s and reopened to foreign investment in the 1990s. About 2 decades later, Maduro's influential predecessor, Hugo Chavez, seized major US oil projects in 2007. ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips pulled out, but later won sweeping international arbitration awards for the seizure of their assets. Back in the middle of the 20th century, Venezuela was a leading exporter across the globe and a founding member of the OPEC group as well.
While oil giants may be cautious to re-enter Venezuela without assurances, a crucial question for oil market watchers is whether crude tankers can resume loading. According to Trump, the Venezuela oil blockade is still in place. However, it is evident that he desires an administration supported by the US to restore the country's oil business to its glory days. Trump said that the US will sell large amounts of Venezuelan oil to existing and new customers, but he did not give any clear details. And as per Trump, the many potential uses of this oil and the earnings from it will include reimbursing the US government for its spending in the country and compensating oil corporations that have had their regional operations disrupted and assets confiscated. Trump also pledged to take care of Venezuelans, both domestically and abroad, and that lines up with his focus on the oil industry and the defense sector since taking office last year.
For decades, NATO has been anchored by American money, power and leadership. But that foundation is now under strain as President Trump has pushed allies to dramatically raise military spending and pared back Washington's own commitments. Questions are now growing over how much leverage the US still holds among its European allies. Still, for now, Trump's moves under his second term highlight his strategy and focus on two big industries, that is oil and defense.
CES, the world's biggest technology show, is set to open in Las Vegas.
And that's right, Shivan. It will bring together the biggest names in tech, startups, investors and policymakers from across the globe. And this year, artificial intelligence and humanoids are set to dominate the conversation.
Now, according to the Consumer Technology Association, CES 2025 drew more than 141,000 attendees from over 150 countries, regions and territories. And this year, over 4,500 exhibitors are expected, including 1,400 startups, spread across massive exhibition spaces in Las Vegas.
So what's really unique about CES is the international visitation. So we'll see representatives from more than 150 countries and regions come to Las Vegas from all over the world.
On the floor, AI is expected to take center stage. Major companies including NVIDIA, Lenovo, Sony, Samsung and Siemens are expected to make big announcements. Industry heavyweights Jensen Huang is set to take stage, while AMD CEO Lisa Su will outline her vision for future AI solutions.
Obviously, AI is going to be front and center, right? You're going to see AI get integrated into all of the gadgets that are there, whether that's IoT or smart home or automotive.
Now, beyond software, AI is also becoming physical. From autonomous vehicles to household robots, CES is expected to showcase machines that move, they interact, and they act as well.
This idea of, call it physical AI, so like AI that's not just in software in your computer, but now manifests itself physically, which includes automotive, right? So full-on autonomy, self-driving cars, and then again, autonomous humanoid robots, I think are going to be the thing where you're just going to see an overabundance of that, which again tells you the trend for that.
Despite recent fears of an AI bubble, industry watchers say that the focus is now on long-term build-out, not hype, with trillions of dollars expected to flow into future computing infrastructure. The event has been keenly awaited to get a much-anticipated glimpse into what to expect this year. Well, it's only the fifth day in 2026 and Hollywood has already delivered its first billion-dollar hit with one of its late 2025 release.
Within 3 weeks of the releases, Fire and Ash has crossed the $1 billion mark worldwide. The third chapter in James Cameron's Pandora epic collected $40 million over its third weekend in North American theaters and is doing its biggest business overseas. It has grossed $777.1 million from international markets. The global gross of the third installment in this blockbuster series now stands at $1.08 billion. The first Avatar movie had earned a whopping $2.1 billion from just overseas markets, while the second part of the sequel generated a massive $1.65 billion from foreign territories.
For the third entry, top earning markets include China, where it earned $138 million, France, where it grossed $81 million, Germany, where it earned $64 million, and Korea, where the movie earned as much as $44 million.
Avatar Fire and Ash is Disney's third release of 2025 to cross the $1 billion mark after Lilo and Stitch and Zootopia 2. It is the fourth James Cameron film overall to pass the $1 billion mark after Titanic and the first two Avatar movies. Fire and Ash stars Zoe Saldana as Na'vi warrior Neytiri and Sam Worthington as ex-Marine Jake Sully, who battle a new foe this time, threatening their family's life on Pandora. And with that, we call it a wrap on this edition of World DNA. Thanks so much for tuning in. Short break now. Stay with us. This is WION World is One.